Hi everyone, in today's video we're going to look at why the higher number of miles in marathon training is what poses the highest risk, but more importantly, what you can do about it to make it really not too much of an issue, hopefully. Now, the number of miles in marathon training is a big key predictor of marathon success, both in terms of getting around it in an enjoyable way, but also for those looking for running specific times, the higher miles is what will predict you running that faster time. Now, we don't want to shy away from this, so although it poses the highest risk of injury, it is something we have to do. If we're looking to do a marathon, we need to run lots of miles. There are some controversial programs out there which suggest running much less long run mileage in particular, but also running fewer miles overall in training. I have very strong opinions on this one, but that's for a different video. But essentially, we do need to do lots of long run miles. We need to do lots of miles overall in our training, potentially obviously supplementing this in other ways as well. Now, what we want to try and do is minimise that risk in this video. So the risks basically are posed by just the sheer amount of impact, the stress on the body and the nervous system, on the immune system as well, and there's loads of things that can kind of then affect us from there. So basically, we want to make sure we're doing everything we can to make sure that we are getting to the marathon, but we're getting there in good shape and feeling really good as well. So first off, sleep. Now, I know this is a big topic right now, and in particular as I record this video, but good quality and good quantity of sleep is so key. Our lifestyle these days doesn't really necessarily work that well for us, so trying to kind of work on that as much as you can. I don't particularly like the term sleep hygiene, but there is an element of that being useful here. So making sure you're getting a sleep routine, and that where possible, you're not staying up excessively late, that you're maybe taking additional rest around when you're doing these bigger sessions. So maybe an early night if you're getting up earlier on the next morning to run, and then maybe having an early night that night as well to kind of condense and to prioritize your sleep in that window. Now, nutrition is another element of this. So if we sleep well, that is really helpful, but if we don't eat well, we're not going to be recovering as well either. So again, we can eat for immune health, we can eat for body composition maintenance, making sure we're not gaining weight that's going to add physical stress to our body. We can also make sure we're not under eating and not giving ourselves the nutrition and nourishment we need to repair properly as well. So that's also really key. And one of the biggest and probably the easiest things we can do really is plan. Actually have a plan in place for your marathon training. Now, it doesn't need to be specific right the way through. You don't need to get down to every nth degree of detail. I do, because that's my job, and also that's my mind. But that's not for everybody, So you can have a rough outline of total mileage, what your long run mileage is going to be, any races you're going to include, any kind of social occasions you need to work around, again for sleep, for nutrition, but also work training around so you're not condensing things. You can be flexible with this, and you should be flexible with this. It doesn't need to be that you have a very rigid, structured plan that cannot possibly change. That's usually a really bad way to train for a marathon. Certainly something that I don't ever recommend for people to do. So what you can then do is make sure you have some flexibility with it. Now, that sometimes means pushing harder than you expected because actually you're feeling really good, training is going really well, and maybe you can achieve more than you thought you could. Go with that. But also it sometimes means taking some rest. If you've got a bit of a cold, if you just don't feel great, if you're really stressed, take some time off, take a day. Don't worry about trying to cram that session in. Miss an easier run in particular, swap things around, do an effort session or a longer run session later on in the week than you would other plan to. It isn't ideal, don't get me wrong, and we don't always want to do that, and we don't want to create too many excuses for ourselves, but sometimes we do need to do that. So give yourself permission just to take it a little bit easier when you need to sometimes. There are other things you can do as well, such as what we call physical preparation. So this is your strength, your conditioning, you're basically making sure that you're on top of any injuries, aches and pains as well. So planning in this element, again, is really important, and something that a lot of people don't do. The additional work on strength can also mean that you produce more power, more force. It also means you can absorb more force. So you're better prepared for those long runs and for the latter miles of marathon training as well, and also the race. One of the biggest culprits of cramping when it comes to marathon running isn't the salts, as most people think. Actually, it's muscle damage. If we're stronger, if we have more muscle mass and more muscle density, or they're just used to being worked in this way, then actually we can augment a lot of that and really basically reduce that risk quite a lot. It doesn't completely eliminate it, but it can have a significant impact. So not only does it make you quicker, means you can more injury-free in all likelihood during training, but also you're going to run a better marathon with reduced risk of cramp. So put in physical preparation, so maybe drop some miles, add in some strength work basically. The other things you can do is swap out some runs. So swap out some runs for some swims, for some bike rides. Again, it's not as specific, but it doesn't have to be perfect. What we can work on with specificity is the right types of run sessions. This may well mean, and this isn't going to be a popular one, but sometimes missing some of the club runs. Bashing out sub 5k pace runs and lots and lots of 10k reps is only going to do you so good when it comes to marathon training. Ideally, you want to get a couple of good marathon training specific sessions in, an easy run and then a long run, or some mix of that depending on how many days you're running. But certainly a good couple of sessions very, very specifically is going to be useful. If that means swapping down out of one of your harder run sessions from a club session, adding in a more specific run session for marathon training, but then swapping out a bike later on in the week, then that's absolutely fine. That can work really, really well. It's something I've done in the past and I will continue to do to work around my own quirks and bodily issues that increase my risk of injury, specifically during marathon training. So all of these things can be really, really useful, but working on your tactical side of things, your technical side, so basically make sure you're running well within your body, your technique is efficient, is reducing risk of injuries in areas you may currently be experiencing them. Again, this can come from coaching guidance, but tactically making sure that you're not just bashing out mad session after mad session after mad session, making sure the paces are appropriate to what you can realistically run. Again, this may come from talking to a coach or doing some research using various different formulas that look at pace projection. There are loads of ways to manage the risk potentially. Yes, high mileage and the marathon training mileage does pose a highest injury risk, but we can manage this without shying away from it and really still in very, very good quality training to get you to race day, having a fantastic experience and having a fantastic time as well.